6 years after his death, Jeffrey Epstein remains a reminder of how power, money, and politics can delay accountability. There are no new arrests this year, no fresh indictments. There's no reopened criminal trial. And yet, the Epstein story is back at the center of global attention. Not because of new crimes, but because old secrets are finally being forced into the open. Court-ordered releases of long-sealed documents, photographs resurfacing from elite gatherings, depositions once hidden, now publicly searchable. The details of his crimes, his network, and survivor testimony are already well documented, examined extensively in court records and investigative documentaries on OTT platforms as well. What matters in the year 2025 is something else altogether. Who controls the Epstein files? Who resisted their release? And why this has become a deeply political fight. First, let's be precise. This is not a conspiracy story. It's not about guilt by association, but about the documented facts, court records, and institutional failures. Jeffrey Epstein died in August 2019 in a Manhattan jail cell while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. His death was officially ruled a suicide. Legally, that ended the criminal case against him. But it did not end the search for accountability. What Jeffrey Epstein left behind was something far more complicated. A web of victims, facilitators, and enablers, secret settlements, sealed court records, and unanswered institutional failures. In brief, Epstein ran a long-term sex trafficking operation involving underage girls, many from vulnerable backgrounds. Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime associate, was convicted in federal court for helping recruit and groom victims and for facilitating his abuse network. In the year 2021, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. The next year, in 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The term Epstein files refers primarily to unsealed civil court documents, not criminal indictments. And these include depositions, emails, flight records, photographs, and testimony from victims and witnesses. Many of these records were sealed for years, often justified as protecting privacy or ongoing legal processes. In this year, 2025, courts ordered large portions of Epstein files released in the interest of transparency. And this is where the story becomes political. The release of the Epstein files was not automatic, it was contested. Democratic lawmakers pushed for broader disclosure, arguing that the public had a right to understand how Epstein embedded himself among powerful institutions and how rarely he was challenged. Republicans warned that releasing unredacted material or restricted material would unfairly damage reputations and argued for extensive redactions, particularly of photographs. During this process, images and references involving prominent figures, including US President Donald Trump, were initially redacted. Democrats publicly objected to it. Courts ultimately ordered wider disclosure. President Trump had documented social interactions with Jeffrey Epstein in the 1990s. He has not been charged or accused in connection with Epstein's crimes and denies any wrongdoing. But in 2025, Trump directly responded to the release of Epstein files. He warned that the disclosures risk damaging the reputations of people who had innocently met Epstein. He said he hates to see pictures come out of former US President Bill Clinton arguing that many individuals named or photographed were merely acquaintances, just like him. Trump also criticized the Justice Department's handling of the release, calling the timing a political distraction and the publication of photographs completely unfair. The latest tranche of Epstein files, released in late December 2025, is the largest set yet, nearly 30,000 pages, and it contains multiple references to Donald Trump, including an internal prosecutor email showing that he flew on Epstein's private jet at least 8 times in the 1990s. But context matters. Many of the Trump mentions come from news clippings shared among Justice Department staff, not new evidence of criminal conduct. The department has stressed that Trump has not been accused of any wrongdoing related to Epstein, and some claims in the files, including a purported letter referencing Donald Trump, have been confirmed as fake. At the same time, lawmakers and advocates in the US have criticized the volume of redacted pages and withheld material, arguing that true transparency requires fuller disclosure beyond what has been made public so far. Several prominent figures have been publicly discussed because of documentation that is already on record, including the likes of Prince Andrew of the UK, who settled a civil sexual assault lawsuit in 2022 without admitting wrongdoing and withdrew from royal duties as well. Former US President Bill Clinton appeared in flight logs and social records and has acknowledged knowing Jeffrey Epstein while denying knowledge of any abuse. Being named in the files does not mean guilt, but the documents show how Jeffrey Epstein gained access to the highest levels of power and how institutions repeatedly failed to intervene. Across multiple US governments and administrations, these records remained sealed. Victims pushed for disclosure, and institutions cited privacy and legal complexity. Critics argue that discomfort over powerful names slowed accountability. Supporters of caution argue that legal standards must prevail. That tension between justice and influence is why the Epstein files matter now. Jeffrey Epstein will never stand trial, but the political systems that shielded him through secrecy, redactions, and silence are still very much on trial. And in 2025, the Epstein files leave us with one uncomfortable truth. Some scandals never end, not because justice failed to arrive, but because it arrived too late.